But
Okay.
my son is coming. Shivani has gone back.
Oh, अच्छा, okay. Uh-huh.
तो
Hmm.
ये सारी बात है. अदरवाइज मेरे को उससे ठीक दिखाई देने लग गया अभी.
Oh, thank God. तो अच्छा लगता है ना जब ठीक दिखाने लगता है.
हाँ.
Hmm.
Yes.
Good, good. Yes, a very
Om Namo Narayana.
Namo Narayanaya to whoever is here, to Bhatya uncle, maybe Anita is sitting there, to Naresh, to Shebi uncle, and I think we are ready to start. And let us start. Okay. So today I will anyway. I'm going to start somewhat differently. Huh? Okay. ॐ नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तं तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यानस्मद्गुरु सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namo Narayana, Kumal. Okay, I'm going to try something different, okay? Yes, I spotlighted myself, but I want to see you guys. Okay.
Namo
I
Narayana.
can.
Narayana.
ओम नमो नारायण. सबको देख पा रही हूँ. आप अपने आप को म्यूट कर लो. Yes, नमो नारायणाय नरेश. I'm seeing you after a long time. And okay, so we start. So I don't know if you've heard of the story of the frog in the well. It's a very common story. So there used to be a frog and it lived in a well. Okay. And this frog was born and brought up in that well. It was a very old well, filled, with some shallow water. And this frog was happy because walls were all covered with some wet moss. तो जब भूख लगी तो थोड़ी insects खा लो. जब it was feeling thirsty, then पानी भी था पीने के लिए. And then when he's tired, there was a small rock at the bottom of the well, and he would go to sleep on that rock. So he was quite, happy. And then when he sleeps, he can look up at the well, and then he can see the clouds and all. He's quite a happy, satisfied frog. One day, another frog, and this frog was from the ocean, it fell into that well. Okay. So this well frog, and made a big sound. Plop! करके वो गिरा उसके अंदर. So this well frog was having a good sleep. He got up and he asked this fellow that, "Oh, who are you?" So he said, "Oh, I'm a frog from the ocean." From the ocean? What is ocean? You know, is it as is it as big as this? And he made a small leap like that. And that other frog, ocean frog, just smiled and said, "No, no, no, it's bigger." He said, "Then is it like this?" And he made an even bigger jump. He said, "No, no, 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 no." He said, "Is it like this?" And he jumped from one end of the well to the other end of the well. So now the ocean frog really had a good laugh. He said, "No, no, how can you compare your well to the ocean? You can't compare it." So the ego of this little frog was really hurt. He said, "How dare you, say my well is the biggest well and you're a liar and you just get out of my well." Okay? So we could laugh at this little frog, but we won't laugh so much because all of us are a little bit like that frog, eh? Like the well frog. Why? Because we don't know anything other than what our mind presents to us. So our mind presents to us only objects, no? So objects, various objects of the world, our body, our mind, it presents all these objects to us. And so we are always dwelling in the world of objects. Our mind is not able to recognize that we pre-exist any experience that it can place before us. I exist first. I, consciousness, exists first. And only then knowing any object, whether it's an object of the world or whether it's a thought or whether it's even God. If you, consciousness, are not there, how will you know even God? Right? So, not only our mind does not know that I am here first and that I pre exist every experience, the mind also does not know that the nature of my pre existence, who am I? So, our mind is the well in which we dwell, like that frog. So, we have a mind well, and we just don't know how to get out of this mind well, this well of our mind. And sometimes this mind well is very dark, and not knowing how to jump out of the mind well can mean lifetimes of being stuck in a very dark well. And supposing it's not very dark, there's a lot of light streaming into that well. Even then, one would still not know what it is, to be on the other side of the well. So we are so blessed by this tradition of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, that tells us boldly that our fundamental existence is free of the mind well, totally free of it. So we don't have to live, in this dark mind well, believing it to be our reality. So this, was just suddenly I was with one of my EFT friends, okay? Where did the rest of y'all go? I was with one of my EFT friends, and what happened was, uh, they are very much living in the mind well only. So I was suddenly, I was explaining to her that someday you should study Vedanta. And that's how the story of the frog came into my head. And I thought, oh, this is a good story. I should tell you all this story. Anyway, so sometimes we are like this, frog in the well. Okay. And so now, from all that we have studied, okay, I made something ready for you all. And I said, let's look, and it will be interactive. Okay. We are going to look at each point over here. I hope you can see the screen. You can see it. People who have a computer will not have a problem. People who are on a phone may have a problem. Eh? So basically, we are going to look at the difference between consciousness and the body mind sense complex. So I am all the time telling you guys, that, body, mind, sense complex, the world, situations, relationships, everything, it is drishyam. Okay, drishyam means it is an object. It's an object of my knowledge. So we are looking at the difference now. So if body, mind, sense complex, world, situations, etc. are drishyam, what is consciousness? How is it different? What is it? So
Consciousness
here these,
cannot be objectified.
so then what shall we call it?
It is
Subject.
Atman, and that is an Atma.
Okay, you want to call it Atma. Okay, I'll write down Atma. I
Or
will call it
sentient.
as the Drik.
Yes, even sentient and insentient, both will be
No,
always
no, that we won't go there yet.
Mhm.
Okay, we won't go there. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Can you see
Drak-
what I've
drak-
written? Atma Drik. I will call
drak
it
means
as,
drashta.
I'll call it
Drashta.
as Sakshi, Drashta,
Drashta.
Drishya,
Okay, good.
drashta.
Okay, now here's the next point. Body, mind, sense complex is anityam. It is temporary. It's transitory. So then how is consciousness different?
Nityam.
Nitya,
It is
Nitya.
Nityam.
Very good. It is nityam. Okay, what does nityam mean?
It is always there.
Eternal. Eternal. Eternal.
Eternal, right? Free from time. So I'll call it as time free. Okay, nityam. Now paratantram. Paratantram means dependent. So body, mind, sense complex, world, situations, relationships, they are all dependent. Dependent on what?
Atma, on consciousness.
Okay, one is on consciousness. What about, they are also dependent on many other factors in the world, no? Body is dependent on food, it is dependent on air, it is dependent on so many things. So they are dependent on many things, okay, many local things. And of course, they are dependent on Atma. That's okay? Okay.
Yes.
So what we call, the word in Sanskrit will be, if this is paratantram, then consciousness is
Swatantra.
independent, so it is swatantram. Swatantram.
Swatantram.
Swatantram. Okay. Seeing if I was getting the spelling correct. Okay. Then we have this interesting word. Body, mind, sense complex, world, situations, relationships are jadam. And remember, I had told you all that jadam is a technical word, meaning that it is not self-revealing. It is inert, it is not self-revealing. So what will be, then how is consciousness different?
It is self-revealing.
It is self.
Yes.
Self-evident.
Self-revealing,
Self-evident.
self-evident, very good. And so I can call it swaprakasha,
Swaprakash. Swaprakash.
and I can call it swata siddha. That means self-evident. Okay?
Swata Siddha. Swaprakash.
Siddha.
Swaprakash. Swaprakash.
Siddha. Okay?
Swaprakash.
And I can call it chaitanyam.
Yes.
It's not jadam, it is chaitanyam. Correct? Okay. Now, body, mind, sense complex is bhautikam, meaning it is matter or energy,
Is a matter.
right? And this is what? It is not matter.
Energy.
Consciousness is not matter or energy, it is consciousness.
It's conscious.
We don't know. We can call it abhautikam,
Abhaut.
not matter. This thing, it is consciousness, Atma, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Then everything in the world has got at some attributes. Sagunam.
Nirguna.
Nirguna.
Exactly. Nirgunam. Nirgunam means what?
Having no
Beyond,
No
beyond
attribute.
attribute.
Having no attributes. Now this is
No
because I'm writing so much here. Our screen is going down. Okay, let me see. Yeah, okay. Then savikari.
It is changing, and that is
Yeah.
always this.
Yeah. So what will it? Nirvikari.
Nirvikari.
Vikari.
Avikari is also okay.
Nirvikari.
Changeless. And because it is changing all the time, it is apurna, adhura.
Oh.
I was listening to something of Avdeshanandji yesterday. So he used this word adhura. I said, oh, I have to hold on to this word, So I wrote it down here, adhura hai. और अधूरा है पूर्ण तो पूरा तो परमात्मा ही है दूसरा सब अधूरा है I like that दूसरा सब, that's why I put it in comments there. Nirvikari, changing. Okay. Now body, mind, sense complex, world, situations, relationships, they are all a dependent reality. They are mithya. When we say mithya, mithya means all these factors come in. Actually, after ascertaining all these factors, we will say ye to mithya hai. Meaning, it is change, especially that anityam, the changing part is very, very changing and dependent. These two are characteristics of any mithya. In fact, all these are characteristics of mithya. So, that which
Sat.
is dependent on Atma, number one, dependent on many other factors, and changing all the time, anityam, you can't call it as true because it is changing all the time. The very next second it will change, And if this is mithya, then what is consciousness?
Sat. Sat.
It is
Satyam.
reality.
Satyam. Satyam
Satyam.
Shivam.
Mithya, and so this will be Satyam.
Shivam Advaitam.
Satyam, okay? Okay, we will put in your comments here Shivam Advaita. Satyam means the absolute reality. The underlying reality. We have been talking in this about underlying reality. And she has given lovely words, Satyam Shivam Advaitam Prapanchopashamam. Prapanchopashamam. Prapanchopashamam means that which is free of the entire prapancham. Okay? Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam, Prapanchopashamam. So now you can see clearly, you have understood that there is difference between body, mind, sense complex, and there is difference between this consciousness that we are. Okay? Okay. Now let's go ahead and read the verses. Okay. And I'm just going to read, no explanation. I've done lots of explanation each time I've been explaining. Okay. Nirguno Nishkriyo Nityo. I can't see because of all these controls. Let me hide the controls. Hide floating control. Nirguno Nishkriyo Nityo Nirvikalpo Niranjanaha Nirvikaro Nirakaro Nitya Muktosmi Nirmalaha Ahamakashavat Sarvam Bahirantargatochutaha Sada Sarva Samasiddho Nisango Nirmalochala Nitya Shuddha Vimuktaikam Akhandanandam Advayam Satyajnanam Anantam Yat Param Brahmahameva Tata Evam Nirantara Abhyasta Brahmevasmiti Vasana Haratya Vidya Vikshepa Druga Nivad Prasayanam Vivikta Desha Asino Virago Vijitendriyaha Bhavayedekamatmanam Tamanantam Ananyadhihi Atmanyevakilam Drishyam Pravilapya Diya Sudhihi Bhavayedekamatmanam Nirmalakasha Vatsada Rupavarnadikam sarvam vihaya paramarthyavata paripurna chidananda swarupenavatishtete jnana jnaya bheda parenatmani vidyate chidanandaika rupatvat dipyate swayamevahi evamatmarano dhyana matane satatam krite uditavagati सर्वज्ञानेन्तनं दहेत् अरुणेनेव बोधेन पूर्वं संस्तमसे हृते तत् आविर्भवेदात्मा स्वयमेवांशुमानिव आत्मा तु सततं प्राप्तः अपि अप्राप्तवद् अविद्यया तन्नाशे प्राप्तवद् भाति स्वकण्ठाभरणं यथा स्थानो पुरुषवद् भ्रान्त्या कृता ब्रह्मणि जीवता जीवस्य तात्विके रूपे तस्मिन् दृष्टे निवर्तते तत्त्वस्वरूपानुभवात् उत्पन्नं ज्ञानमञ्जसा अहं ममेति चाज्ञानं बाधते दिग्भ्रमादिवत् सम्यक् विज्ञानवान् योगी स्वात्मन्येवाखिलं स्थितम् एकं च सर्वमात्मानं ईक्षते ज्ञानचक्षुषा आत्मैवेदं जगत् सर्वम् आत्मनोऽन्यन्न किञ्चन मृदो यद्वद्घटादीनि स्वात्मानं सर्वमीक्षते जीवमुक्तस्तु तद्विद्वान् पूर्वोपाधिगुणां त्यजेत् स सच्चिदादिधर्मत्वं bhaved brahmaraketavata. So we've come now to verses, 48 to 50. Okay, and today we are going to do 48 we did last time. 48 is referring to the enlightened person who is a Jivan Mukta, a person who is liberated while alive. Okay, let me see if I can put you guys up there so I can see you people. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see the next verse. Okay, it's also going to talk about a Jivan Mukta. Tirtva moharnavam hatva ragadve Shadi Rakshasan Yogi Shanta Samayukta Atma Ramo Virajate. So, Tirtva. Tirtva means having crossed. What? Moharnavam. Moharnavam, the ocean of delusion. And then what did this chap? He crossed the ocean of delusion. Actually, it should have been okay. And then not killed, having killed, hatva, having killed ragadveshadi rakshasa, having killed the ragadveshas, who are the rakshasas, they are the demons. And why are they demons? We will shine on that again later. The yogi, what happens to him? Now he is a jnani, because he has crossed this ocean of delusion. Having killed these rakshasas of ragadvesha, now he is united with his own peace, Shanti Samayukta. And he revels and shines in the self, Atma Ramo Virajate. So, let me ask you all have a book with you, right? No. So
Yes,
then let the screen be there. Otherwise, I'll remove the screen. Moharnava. Moha is delusion. Moharnava, the ocean of delusion. So what is delusion really? Delusion is the belief or impression, okay, which is false. So we are deluded into thinking, that is the moha, that we are the body, mind, sense complex. We think that that is our reality. Whereas, what is really reality? What does Advaita say about reality? Reality, when we say the word reality, reality means Sat. Sat means that which is always true. Always true. That which is absolutely true. If it is to be absolutely true, it means it can never change. So that which never changes its state, that is what is called as Sat. And what Shastra is pointing out is that our reality is consciousness, and that consciousness is Sat. It is absolutely real. And it is because of this consciousness, which is absolutely real, which is completely changeless, okay? And it is in its presence. It is because of it that the body of mind sense complex is functioning, and in its presence alone, everything here functions and everything is illumined. So, compared to this Sat, which never changes, which is an absolute reality, the body, mind, sense complex is a temporary reality. That which is temporary. Because the body is going to perish in time, and even the mind, Firstly, the delusion perishes when knowledge takes place, and when the enlightened person leaves his body, even the mind dissolves. So, Moharnava Tirtha, right now we are talking, he's alive. Having crossed the ocean of delusion or the ocean of suffering, Moha causes suffering. Iti. Okay. What kind of suffering? The suffering of taking yourself to be very limited, to be very small, to feel insecure, all that is suffering, So that is a big delusion. Okay. Delusion of taking yourself to be the body mind, because of which there is suffering. Iti. Here the example of ocean is used just to emphasize for us that it is a very difficult to cross. Supposing he had told pond or lake, Pond or lake means the other side we can easily see. But in an ocean, we can't see the other side, no? That means what? It is difficult to cross. It is very vast in terms of our experience. The ocean seems to be having no boundary at all. So vast. So one of our senior Swamijis, no, he very beautifully explains that in the story of Ramayana, Lord Rama has to cross the ocean to reach Lanka. And for crossing that ocean, they had to build a bridge. In the same way, to cross this ocean of samsara that we have, the ocean of ignorance or delusion that we have, we need a bridge. And our bridge to cross this ocean is built on the teaching of Vedanta by using all the prakriyas, We have seen so many prakriyas in Tattva Bodha. We saw what Karana Karya Prakriya, we saw the Panchakosha Viveka Prakriya, we saw the Avastatraya Prakriya, right? The Atma and Atma Viveka Prakriya. So these are the bridges, this is the bridge. Our bridge becomes very strong when we become clear on these prakriyas. So anyway, this, this enlightened person, Hatva, okay? Hatva means having killed. What did he kill? Rakshasan, demons. What kind of demons? Ragadveshadi demons. Firstly now, why are they demons? Because Ragadvesha, primarily it is born because of a sense of Apurnata. Why is Apurnata there? Apurnata is there because knowledge of Purnatvam is not there. Therefore, that superimposition taking the body to be. Therefore, Apurna, once you feel Apurna, then you will project on something that it's going to make me Purna. And once you project on that, it's going to become a Raga. Or you're going to say, this makes me Apurna, and it will become a Dvesha. So, and that sets up craving in one. There's a lot of craving, there's need. And that need makes you do action. And sometimes that action can be adharmic. So these are all the Rakshasas. Right? Tayona, what is it in Ragadvesho? Tayorna Vasham Agachet. In Gita it is said, don't come under their sway. They are your enemies. They are your Shatrus. So how did he kill this Ragadvesha? Through a life of sadhana. What was the sadhana? His sadhana was all the Antakarna Shuddhi methods he used. Karma Yoga, Puja, Japa, meditation, EFT, coming out of wrong conclusions. Can use EFT for that also very effectively. Layers and layers of wrong conclusions we have. So those layers of wrong conclusions, EFT is very effective for coming out of that. So using this living a life of sadhana, this person has been able to destroy the Ragadvesha Rakshasas. So this is the yogi, the seeker, who has gained enlightenment. He's the wise person, the jnani. And so what happens for him? Shanti Samayukta. He becomes endowed with peace. Okay, he is full of peace. See, when Rama went to Lanka, he was reunited with Sita. So Sita here represents the Shanti. So in this verse, the seeker, having crossed the delusion and having defeated the demons of Ragadvesha, he gains Shanti. Like Rama regained Sita. Okay, in the same way, the seeker gains Shanti. And then Atma Ramaha Virajate. Here the word Ramaha can mean Lord Rama, or it can also indicate Ram, the verbal root, which means to enjoy, to revel. And the noun Ramaha means enjoyment. So Atma Rama means enjoyment of Atma, to revel in oneself. And here it can be used as a pun, both ways, intending this person, is now dwelling in Rama, Lord Rama, or he's regained his Sita, his Shanti, is dwelling in Shanti, or he is reveling as himself. Atma Rama Virajate. So having crossed the ocean of suffering, having killed all the ragadveshas, iti, he gains shanti and revels virajate in himself. Okay? So virajate means shines or glows, as it were. He remains atmani eva atmana tushtaha. He is satisfied in himself. He remains in his own radiance. Swamahimne tishtati, remains in his own radiance, meaning the source of contentment is himself alone. It's not outside him. So when we start out in our lives, we look for contentment and peace through all kinds of activities, situations, people, and we gain it also. It's not that we don't gain it, you know. Now, I like gulab jamun, and if I not allowed, so don't send me gulab jamun. So when I get gulab jamun, yes, I feel happy. But that happiness is temporary. It's not that I don't gain it. It's temporary. Okay. Just one sec. My dhupi has come. Okay. Yeah. Okay, कितना हुआ? कल, हाँ? Actually, I also forget that on Fridays, don't give the clothes. See? It's okay. So, what Shastra is pointing out is that the true source of contentment and peace is our own very self. You know? Let me get out of this share. See, what happens is everything which is an object, which is Jadam, which I forgot to tell you all at that point, I wanted to tell you this. How can it be a source of contentment, satisfaction, and joy? Because something which is Jadam cannot be a source of contentment. And there is only contentment, satisfaction, peace must have its source in consciousness, right? And there is only one source of consciousness, the same source of consciousness. So consciousness is actually the real source of contentment, satisfaction, peace, joy, expressed in that form in the mind. Iti. Now what happens when I get my rasgulla or I get my gulab jamun? For the time being, the restlessness which is there in my mind becomes shant. And when that becomes shant, I am able to enjoy that joy which is naturally there. When the mind's restlessness comes down, the peace you enjoy. It's like recently I had been to the Sal forest behind Mandusid. And I was there in nature, and I cannot tell you the sense of oneness which was there. It was actually a mystical experience of oneness. And I came back and I analyzed it. And I realized that what Pujya Swamiji used to say. He used to say that when you're in nature, you don't want anything to be different. Right? You accept nature as it is. So the forest was beautiful. I accepted the forest as it was. There was a small little river going by. We were paddling in the river, enjoying the river. All that was just pure acceptance. And so when there is acceptance, the mind is really shant. And when the mind is shant, there is joy. And where is it that the forest had the object called joy? No. The joy is in the joy is nothing but the consciousness you are. It is anantam. It expresses in the mind as joy when the mind's restlessness is not there. Iti. Okay? So any small ananda that we get from any object is nothing but the ananda of the self. So Vishaya ananda from food, ananda from your children, ananda from spouse, and any ananda is nothing but the same Brahmananda. There was an anecdote told by Swami Chinmayananji. There was this yatri who traveled a great distance, okay, and undergoing all kinds of hardships to reach a particular temple. Now, after many days, he reaches the temple. He enters the temple. He has gone through so much hardship. He has come into the temple. He has one look at the Lord. And what does he do? he closes his eyes. इतनी हार्डशिप करके वो आया है ये मंदिर में भगवान की दर्शन करने के लिए, and right there, एक दर्शन करके he closes his eyes. Why? Because he wants to see that Lord, the source of all contentment and peace, he wants to see it within. Iti. So it is this process of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, which helps us to appreciate the source of contentment, the source of peace, the source of security, the source of joy. It's all within oneself, or rather than saying within oneself, it is oneself. Yeah? So now we will again share the, oops, what did I do? Okay, let me go up. Here, share screen, because we are going to the next verse. That was 49 and 50. Here, the next verse say, Bahya nitya sukha saktim hitvatma sukha nirvritaha ghatastha deepavat swasta swantareva prakashate. Again, hitva. Hitva means having given up. What did he give up? Bahya anitya sukha asaktim. Asaktim is the attachment, the craving, the attachment. Attachment for what? Sukha. Naturally, the craving is always for sukha. So he has the craving for sukha, but the sukha which is bahya, which is from external sources. So anything other than consciousness is external, okay? So if you are doing pranayama and you are having sukha, if you call that as a reason, then that also we'll call as external sukha. So bahya. Now the problem with this bahya sukham is what? It is anityam. It is temporary. So this person, having given up the attachment to the sukha can not only pleasure, we should also put here the sense of well-being. So having given up the attachment to the sense of well-being which is dependent upon external sources, Atma Sukha Nirvritaha. Nirvritaha, the one who has gained or achieved what? Atma Sukha, his own Sukha. Okay? Swatma Sukha, Atma Sukha. Okay. Then what? So, Atma Sukha Nirvritaha, and which is Swasthaha. Swasthaha, sthaha, that which is centered on swa, which is centered on the self. And swastha also has the sense of being, of well-being, which is centered on the self, which shines within. Swantaha eva prakashate. It shines within. Okay? It is an antara sukha. It is an inner. One was bahya sukha and the other is atma sukha. So this kind of contrast. And then he gives an example, which is like a ghatastha deepavat. Okay. So sukha saktihi, having given up the sukha saktihi. Sukha sakti is the attachment to the sukha. That means attachment is another word for attachment is emotional dependence, right? Emotional dependence, which is bahya, anitya. Okay, that I already told you. So what is emotional dependence? It means to be dependent on someone or something for one's own sense of well-being, for one's own contentment, satisfaction, and inner peace. That emotional dependence is what is called here as asakti. Another word for it, common word in spiritual, this thing is attachment. Asakti. To bahya anitya sukha. To one's own sense of well-being, which is dependent upon external sources. And why that? What's the problem with that? It is anitya. You always become dependent on something. If that is not there, then you cannot be happy. So all we housewives are dependent on one particular thing. What? Our servants. Eh? If the servant doesn't come, we have, sense of well-being if servant is there. Servant is not there. Maha sense of not being, all is not well with me. Eh? I'm not safe. All is not well. All kinds of feelings will turn up. Now, this is this jnani, He's the one who is free of emotional dependence on anything external for his own sense of well-being, his own sense of contentment, his own sense of satisfaction. And so how does that person becomes? He becomes Atma Sukha Nirvrittaha. He becomes one who is fulfilled, who is achieved, who has gained Atma Sukha. He's fulfilled in himself. Atmaniyeva Atmana Tushtaha. He is fulfilled in himself. So we are seeing a contrast here. Okay? Where there is ignorance, there is dependence on Bahya Anitya Sukha. And the other is the Jnani who has got Atma Sukha, which is not dependent on any external factor at all, which is one's own nature. Atma is Nityam, that we all agreed last time. Atma is Nityam. So Atma's nature of Sukha is also Nitya Sukha. Okay? A permanent source of Sukha. Okay? You can call it a Shanti. So what is that contentment like? Totally satisfied in oneself without needing to change anything about oneself. Content and fulfilled. That is the nature. And why is this there? Because the person has recognized that the true self is Satyam. It is the Drik, the Drashta. It is Nitya. It is Swaprakasha. It is Chaitanyam. It is Avikari. It is Purna. Okay? Full, whole, complete. That is what the real nature is. So the body, mind, sense complex is not the real nature. Problems of the body, mind, sense complex are not really our problems. Eh? In the sense that when the shift takes place, for that person we are talking, for the person for whom the shift has taken place, okay, then that person knows that none of these problems really affect me, the consciousness which is here. Then having understood that, changing anything becomes a choice. You may choose. Your stomach is having a problem, you choose to go and get it rectified. Some, old samskaras may be there inside, you choose to do something about it. Iti. So here the example now is very interesting. The Jnani Swastaha, he is established in himself, Ghatastha Deepavat. Like a lamp placed within a pot. So when a lamp is placed within a pot, it is shining, illumining itself. The lamp is illumining itself as well as the interior of the pot, right? That shining lamp does not need another lamp to illuminate. It is self-illumining, so prakasha, self-shining. Now, if you're outside looking at the pot, you may not see the lamp shining inside. In the same way, when you see a Jnani, you simply can't tell whether the person is a Jnani or not. It's not that the Jnani is going to glow, in the dark or something like that. You can't make out the truth just by looking at the Jnani, whether he or she is enlightened or not. Enlightenment is not visible from outside. So the lamp of wisdom shines in the Jnani, not visible to everybody, not visible to anybody in fact, just like the lamp inside the pot, swa antare eva prakashati. It shines within oneself alone. So the Jnani knows he is free from suffering and his wisdom is hidden in his heart. Okay? And now we look at the next verse. Upadistopi tad dharmaihi alipto vyomavan munihi sarva vimudavat tishted asakto vayu uchcharet. So this Jnani, Upadhistopi. Upadhistaha api. Api means even though. Even though upadhistaha. Even though he is abiding in the upadhi. He is remaining in the midst of the upadhi. This munihi, the munihi, is unaffected, is tad dharmaihi aliptaha. Tad here is referring to upadhi. Upadhi dharmaihi aliptaha. He is unaffected by the attributes of the upadhi. And he gives an example here, Vyomavat, like space. Sarvavit, he knows everything, yet Mudhavat tishtet, he lives like an ignorant person. And Vayuvat charet, he moves about unattached. So here we have the wise person referred to as Munihi. Munihi, let me get out of this, stop this sharing, okay. Muni has many meanings. It can mean an ancient rishi. It can mean a person who is given to meditation, to contemplation, it can mean a person who practices silence, a thinking person. It can mean any of this. Here it means an enlightened person. This person is one who has got jnanam. And this enlightened person we saw is upadhistaha. I'll have to go back now and screen share. Upadhistaha meaning, what happened? Okay. Upadhistaha. Okay, upadhistaha. Staha means to abide. Abide in what? Upadhi. So he is abiding in the upadhi. Api. Even though he is abiding in the upadhi. And the upadhi is referring to what? It's referring to the body-mind complex. Okay. We are identified with the body-mind complex and we take their attributes, to be I. That means we superimpose it on the consciousness that we are. So the Muni, but he doesn't do that. And therefore, even though he appears to be abiding in the upadhi of the body-mind sense complex, he remains aliptaha. Okay? Aliptaha means unaffected, untainted. By what? By the attributes. Tad dharmaihi aliptaha. Upadhi dharmaihi aliptaha. He remains not affected by the upadhi dharmas. Because he knows that upadhi dharmas belong to the upadhi. They don't belong to me. Remember, whenever we say upadhi, remember the crystal and the orange cloth. So, the color of the cloth belongs to the cloth, not to the crystal. In the same way, Jnani knows that I am clear, pure consciousness, untainted by any of the dharmas of the upadhi. Imagine how wonderful it would be, for us to know that the problems of the mind belong to the mind. Sadness, fear, anxiety, panic, guilt, jealousy, greed, all of this, it belongs to the mind. Here we have to make a note, okay? It belongs to the mind, it's true. But why are they there? They are there because of the identification, right? And so, or they can be there, and once the knowledge is there, if they're still there, it means they're there as samskara, So even samskaras don't affect consciousness, that is the truth. Even impressions, deep impressions in the mind don't affect consciousness. So the truth is that you are always unaffected by whatever is going on in your mind. Whether it is in the case of an ignorant person or it's in the case of somebody who knows or beginning to know, even then consciousness is not affected. Yeah. Even if they are deep impressions, they don't affect. Okay. In fact, this is the one main point that Atma Bodha, I think, has consistently made. That you, Chaitanya, are pure consciousness and you are always unaffected. You are always untouched by anything which is internal, that is within the body-mind sense complex, or anything which is external. Now, Shankara gives a beautiful example or a metaphor. Like space is utterly unaffected by what it accommodates. Clouds are floating in the space. Smoke is there in the air, there is smog, there is mist. All stuff is going on. Even the color of blue, which we see if we look at and we think space is blue, but it's not really, it's just the dust particles, sunlight is reflecting on it and appearing to make it look blue. It's not really blue. So space is unaffected by any of the things which it's accommodating within it, iti. Now, supposing, in some places, where there is a lot of land, and you go and stand somewhere in that land, and then you're looking around, you look up, and the space looks like an inverted bowl. Really, nowadays it's difficult to find such places, but you can find such places where the space is looking like an inverted bowl. Then when you're looking at the space like an inverted, it's looking so vast, and you're looking, and then suddenly it looks like it's limited. The space got limited by the horizon. Because only as far as the horizon you can go. Can't go further than that. So it looks like there is a limitation there. But is space really affected by the apparent limit that the horizon is putting on it? Space is not affected by it. So just as space is not affected by anything, so too the enlightened person, the Jnani, even though he is abiding in the body-mind sense complex, this is the Jivan Mukta we are talking about, he is unaffected by the attributes of the body. Right? So this verse is also describing the Jivan Mukta. And who is he? He is free while alive, and Shankara calls him as a Sarvavit. Sarvavit usually means the omniscient one, the all-knowing one. Sarvavit. Vit means to know, with to know, Sarva. The one who knows all. But there can be a misunderstanding, with this word. When someone gets enlightened, it does not mean that they become Trikala Jnani, that they know the past. They know the present, whatever is happening. They know the future. And so he's a Trikala Jnani. He comes to know all the languages. He comes to know everything about you. It's not like that, Yes, Trikala Jnani, some people are there, but that kind of siddhi comes because of Saguna Brahma Upasana. That person has got connected to Brahman to Ishvara in the form of this whole Jagat. So that kind of siddhi can come, some kind, but even then it won't be as complete as Ishvara's knowledge, So you come in front of that person will come to know things about you, because the person is connected with Saguna Brahma. But here we are not talking about that. We're talking about the Jnani who recognizes that consciousness is free of everything, And so when we say call him a Sarvavit here, it is like by knowing the clay, you know all the pots made of clay. There can be a million pots, but all of them because you know what is their underlying reality. You know that it is clay. So in that way, this Jnani is a Sarvavit. You know the Adhishtanam of all the pots, that it is clay. It is the underlying reality of all the pots, iti you come to know. So in the same way, this Jnani, he knows that he is infinite consciousness, he is Brahman. So he knows the reality of everything that exists in this cosmos. He knows that the every essence of everything is Brahman, which is the consciousness that he is. So he does not need to really know the details, The details are all Namarupa, they are Mithya. It's not required. But details are known by Ishvara or people who are Saguna Brahma Upasaka. Some of them may come to know. They may come to know some aspects of it. Total is only Ishvara. So the Jnani who is a Sarvavit, he is Mudhavat, like an ignorant person, Tishtati, he lives. Okay, we'll just take Tishtati as live. So even though he is a Jnani, his behavior is just like anybody else who is ignorant of the truth. Nobody can make out by looking at him that he is a Jnani. He just looks like any ordinary person. He doesn't have a pride that he is enlightened. Suppose his perspective is totally different, no? The way he looks at the world the world is not very real for him. It's like a dream world for him. So his perspective is completely different. And it's not that he gained something new when he got Jnanam. It was only removal of ignorance. That's all. Because consciousness you already are. That you are consciousness, that is infinite, that you don't know, that ignorance got removed. Iti. So the Jnani is only, this thing is, the way he thinks is, oh God, how foolish I was, how deluded I was, that I missed seeing myself as I am. How could I have been so deluded? Supposing in your home, you have got some garbage, okay, and it is smelling like anything. So you take it out so that the kachra wala will take it away. Do you feel proud of removing the garbage? No, you're just relieved. The stink is gone. You're relieved. In the same way, Jnani has no pride of, oh, I'm enlightened, I'm an enlightened person. Iti, is tarah ki vastu nahi hai. Iti. And so, he's just natural, and he moves about naturally just like the air does. Vayuvat charet, asaktaha, vayuvat charet, unattached. Like Vayu, he goes around. Vayu has no agenda. It moves about everywhere and it is not attached to anything. It moves by the laws of nature in keeping with the barometric pressure. From high to low, it will move. Likewise, Jnani also has no agenda. He's unattached to everything. And according to the laws of nature, when he's hungry, he eats. When he is thirsty, he drinks. When he's tired, he sleeps. Okay? And nature includes the laws of karma. And the laws of karma determine how long his body is going to hang around. So Jnani's body will continue until the prarabdha karma for that body is over. Till then, he will eat, he will sleep, he will teach, he will sing. And once the prarabdha karma is over, the body drops and that Jivan Mukta gets Videha Mukti. And this will be the topic of our next verse. So I have my next verse in mind. If you don't mind, I'll just quickly go through it and maybe, redo it next time. So let's look at the next verse. Upadi vilayad Vishnu nirvishesham vishen munihi jale jalam viyad vyomni tejasi vayata. So upadi vilayat, when the Upadi resolves. That means Upadi of this body, when it resolves, dissolves, dies. What? Munihi, this sage, what does he do? He enters or merges without any of the attributes of the Upadi. With what? He enters what? He merges with what? The Vishnu, the all-pervading reality. Nirvishesham Vishnu Vishet. And 3 examples are given. Just as water merges into water, space into space, or light into light. We'll go through this. So we are talking now, Muni is referring to the Jivan Mukta of the previous verse. Now his body is, gone. So Upadi Vilayat, when physical body dies, then he merges with Vishnu. So commentator here explains that merges with Vishnu should be taken, here the word Vishnu is taken as its root meaning, which is all-pervading. So he merges with the all-pervading and without distinctions he merges. He doesn't carry his individuality along with him, when he is merging. There's no individuality. Giving up all the individuality, because it's all in the Upadi. The Upadi is gone. Iti. So, Nirvishesham, he enters, he merges into the all-pervading reality, which is Brahman. We can take Vishnu as Lord Vishnu also, because Lord Vishnu is Brahman. Iti. However, in this context, we will take it as the sense of Vishnu as all-pervasive. So, Nirvishesham Vishnu Vishet. He merges, free of all distinctions, free of all individuality, Vishnu, the all-pervading reality. Okay. So he's merging, meaning with Brahman, the all-pervading, one homogeneous, uncreated, unborn reality. Brahmavid Brahmeva Bhavati. Loses his individuality, merges with Brahman, okay, which is boundary-free consciousness. Before the death also, this person knew that I am that all-pervading consciousness. But because of the presence of the body, the person still experienced the limitations of the body. As long as the body remains, okay, the Jnani is going to experience the limitations. If you prick him with a pin, he is also going to get the pain of being pricked with the pin. But when the Upadhi resolves, the experiences associated with the Upadhi, naturally they go away. So the experience of limitation of the body, that goes away. So as a Jivan Mukta, even though the Jnani experiences the limitations of the body and mind, for example, if he gets cancer, then he'll definitely experiences the problems associated with cancer. But because he knows that cancer belongs to the body, not to the consciousness, in that sense, he is not affected at all. So knowledge, we can see, is fundamentally removing ignorance and discovering our own true nature. So when the Jnani loses this body-mind sense complex, it dies, then the Jnani, we saw this. Example is Jale Jalam. This is a nice example. Okay, quickly I'll go through the examples. Supposing you have an unbaked pot of water and it's full of water. Now you immerse that pot in the ocean. Visualize it. Inside the pot there is water, okay, and on the outside also there is water. Within the pot and outside the pot also there is water. Now since the pot is unbaked, the clay will melt away and the water which was in the pot, what happens? It just merges, no? There's only one water left. You can no more distinguish it as water within the pot, water outside the pot. Such a distinction is not there. There is just water. In the second example, Vyad Vyomni, like the space merges into space. Supposing you have a room. Within the four walls of the room, there is an enclosed space. We call that as the room space. So there is a room space and there is the outside space. Now, so the walls, it's all one space, but the walls of the room appear to create a division. No, as though there is a room space and there is an outside space. Now, suppose the walls are broken down. Then there is no more room space, outside space, there is only space, right? So here we are talking about the Jnani's body dropping. So the dropping of the body is like the walls of the room dropping, disappearing or being broken. So when the walls disappear, the apparent difference between the room space and the outside space, it disappears, right? In the same way, when Jnani's body-mind sense complex drops, the apparent difference between the limited individual conscious being and the vast, all-pervasive consciousness, that apparent difference completely goes away. That apparent difference was due to the presence of the Upadhi. Whether it's in the pot, in the sea, or the walls in the space. When the Upadhi disappears, the apparent differences also disappear. Right? So for the Jnani also, body-mind sense complex disappears. Apparent distinction as individual consciousness and vast all-pervasive consciousness, that distinction disappears and all there is one vast consciousness. That's why we say the Jnani becomes Ishvara, Then one last metaphor, Tejaha Tejasi. Tejas can mean fire or light. Here we can take it as both. Let's look at it as fire. It's like fire merges in fire, meaning imagine that there is a blazing fire and it is emitting sparks, sparks. So every little spark is made of fire, correct? Now it emerges from the fire as a little spark and it's floating out there. It looks like it is different from the fire. Yet in just a few moments, it falls back into the fire and becomes utterly non-separate from the fire. So too the Jnani's body, it's been conceived and born, and he has a temporary experience of individuality. And that continues as long as the body is alive. And when the body drops, the experience of individuality goes away, just like that little spark, falling back into the fire. Supposing it is the body of an ignorant person that dies, then too there is no experience of individuality, and the person will remain experientially non-separate from Brahman. But because there is ignorance, the laws of karma will drive the Sukshma Sharira to get another physical body. And the person is born again, and again there is temporary experience of individuality. But for the Jnani, the Sanchita karma, the Agami karma, the Prarabdha karma, everything has come to an end with the end, death of the body. And so the Jnani is completely freed from all karma, and there is no more rebirth for the Jnani, no more experiential sense of separation, okay, from the whole, from the infinite, from Brahman. Even when there is ignorance, there is only Brahman. So whether one is enlightened or not, one is non-separate from Brahman. However, in the presence of the body, there is an experience of separation. There is an experience of individuality. And it is that experience of individuality that goes away when there is death. If you're not enlightened, the experience of individuality will come back. If you're enlightened, the experience of individuality doesn't come back. Okay? So we can take Tejas also to mean light. That's a weak argument, which I'm going to do. Supposing there are two light and there's a screen in between, remove the screen, then the light is one. So with verse 52, the section on the nature of the enlightened person, whether it's Jivan Mukta or Videha Mukta, that section is over. And from the next section, we will look at the knowledge of Brahman. Okay, and that will be next time. And so let me come back to gallery view. Yeah, and we will see that next time. Okay, that was, 18:20. We have 10 minutes before our. Why I come at 5:15 and not at 5? Because I think you people sleep in the afternoon. And then you sleep in the afternoon, चाय वाय पीना पड़ता है. तो 5 बजे बोलोगे तो 5 बजे आप लोग पहुंचते नहीं हैं. So I made it 5:15. If I make it 5:15, sometimes the class goes a little extra, So then it's okay. Then we will just have some hot water and come back for our prayer meeting. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So, you can ask questions, okay? So this last bit would have been a big this thing. So you can ask questions. We can start with questions next time. Okay. Om Harihi Om. That's it.
Hari Om.